Good morning. I'm Austin. Uh, Finally switched to horizontal, so hopefully that helps some of y'all with. I prefer horizontal. I just was trying to get the handle of this gimbal, trying to figure out how to make it work without it being awkward. Um, and I think, obviously the vertical works, but I think it works better for shorter videos. Um, Jessie, it's okay. You silly dog. She's reacting to a car that's down the street. Jesse! Buddy, enough. There's another dog named Mason. He's one of my favorites. Obviously, a little biased towards Jesse, but Mason was the first dog whose name I knew at the kennel. Funnily enough, his mom was the first person whose name I knew, but who I couldn't match a face to the name. The entire time I knew her, up until like 6 months. No, probably like 3 months. Mason would get dropped off, and sometimes it would be her, but I'd be in the back, but sometimes it'd be her mom, and I'd be like, "Is that Mason's mom?" And I never knew who it was, and it just kept happening. But Mason's one of those dogs that he's just like, if there's a dog, like obviously Jesse's one of the main characters, but if there's a dog main character, it's definitely Mason. He's what I call. I said in one of my other videos. I mentioned the idea of um, sun dogs and shadow pups. One second, my notebook is being crazy. Let me pause this real quick. Alrighty, I'm back. Funnily enough, at 2:08 seconds right now. I'm big on 2s and 8s. 2 for me always represents balance, and 8 always represents infinite, just the infinite. I I sometimes will use the word God, sometimes will use the word universe, sometimes will use different names depending on what aspect I feel like I'm addressing, or what personality trait I'm addressing, because I'm of the mind that God, the universe, consciousness, whatever you call it, is infinite. And so it, they, she, he, whatever you want to say, can do whatever it wants, whatever they want, whatever he or she wants. And that's anything. It's infinite. That is not limited to, you don't have okay, Pokemon. You're not limited to 151. You have infinite. Just like on Earth, just because there are millions of species on Earth with, different types of spiders and different types of jellyfish and different types of ants. Hundreds of thousands of species and billions and trillions and quadrillions of examples of those individual beings. And yes, we broadly define species as these clearly identifiable differences. Like, okay, you have families and genus and all that stuff, all these different categorizations, and it's just like they're all things that we felt was right in the moment, even if it might have been wrong, or it might have been too broad or too specific. And they worked to a degree. They fit the box we were trying to fit, but not exactly perfectly. Hey, Mason, it's okay. It's just a car going by. That's the funny thing about this area, as opposed to Vegas, is that with Vegas you're always hearing cars. With here, it's, with this specific spot at least, it's rare enough that the dogs react to it. Like in Vegas, they're reacting to it because it's constant. It's, they're reacting to all the things that are happening around them. Here, it's literally because it's rare or rarer. Like there are definitely cars once you go out of the clearing, but until you get to the clearing, there's a lane that leads to the clearing. The people who come down this are mostly customers, or people dropping off supplies. Like if we need dog food delivered, or I just recently bought a pair of shoes. So it's like those things all come down the lane, but a lot of that stuff goes to the mailbox, and a lot of that stuff goes to, it comes at once with the UPS or whatever. So it's not like we're getting a bunch of trips per day. It's like 3 or 4 cars a day into this clearing during the winter, especially. Maybe 1 car a day. And then with now that it's spring, still, it's finally getting warm enough to like be comfortable in a t-shirt and shorts out in the sun, and like even the wind chill isn't gonna bother you, like, because the wind chill can be really like cutting. But I wanted to come on here and kind of address a few, talk about a few things, just kind of really. Well, one thing I noticed, I realized I made a mistake in the last video, is that I misnamed the person who I was trying to. I was meaning to talk about Karna, not Rama. So Karna did a thing that I associate with people like, or beings like Rama. So I think of them as people. Like I when I think of people, I think of Jesse. When I think of people, I think of Vishnu. When I think of people, I think of Iniko and myself. Like, we're people. We're individual beings, yes. And yes, we have differences of identity and differences of appearance. And also like scales. Like, yes, Shiva is a being, is an individual. And they're infinite. But also, I'm infinite. It's just a scale of infinite. It's like when you see an ant up close, up close, it can take up your entire field of view and look like it's the world, when it's really just this tiny little creature that you're close to. And it's just, we're at a scale where Shiva is, like, when we look at the sky, I'm convinced that blue is, yes, it's also a reflection or refraction of light. It's, all these different things. But it's also, it feels like that would be, because both Vishnu and Shiva are blue. Well, Shiva is the destroyer or the annihilator, depending on whose perspective or which name you follow. But I believe it's kind of like with the Quran, with Allah, there are the 1,000 names, or the 100 names, but it's really the infinite names. It's just we put a name on it that means big. Before we, like, every time we come up with a concept of big, we say whatever the biggest is, that is God. Whatever the most is, it's God. So that's why we have words like, we have the word infinite is it's the closest approximation we can put into one word of something is infinite. But we, as beings who can't perceive infinite, because we are on this track going forward, we forget that infinite is happening all around us. The wind never stops, not truly. Just because you stop feeling the breeze, it's still going 2 towns over. And yes, some would say the butterfly flaps its wings and it creates ripple effects. But in a literal way too, yeah, that's true. Yes, when a butterfly does in fact flap its wings, it does create a ripple in the fluid that is air. And that does create chain reactions that will eventually result in other things. But it doesn't literally create hurricanes. It might contribute to a hurricane, but it in itself isn't doing anything. It couldn't change that fact, nor could we with regards to our own breath. And so I want to say, so it was actually Karna who was attributed with the giving away of wealth without any strings attached. If I remember the story correctly, which I probably might get it wrong because I haven't read the Vedas, I haven't read the Bhagavad Gita, I haven't read the Mahabharata, I haven't held those documents and read them, but I've had my own spiritual experiences where I sat across from Vishnu, I sat across from Shiva, I sat across from myself, I sat across from Jesus, I sat across a space. For me, it's not a table. It's not a table separating us, because that's too much like a podcast or an interview or a interrogation. For me, like with my example of what a conversation should be between yourself and God, or yourself and the universe, or yourself and insert name here, Shiva, Sophia, whatever. And I believe it's more like this, where I'm in a chair and you're in a chair, and we're sitting across from each other and we're talking. And when I'm talking, you're listening. And when you're talking, I'm listening. It is turn-based. Like, we keep trying to, like with war, we've tried to, back in the day with Revolutionary War and line combat, we tried to make it fair by making, line combat, try to give like almost like a turn, a clear, but it's also about strategy and, trying to level a playing field and all these things. Like that's why we have those phrases, all is fair in love and war, because it pushes the boundaries. Until you define what is off limits, it will be found during war, which is why we should avoid it. War should be it should not even be a resort. It shouldn't even be the last resort. It should be a resort that we think of and is the boogeyman. We shouldn't be using it as a threat. We should say, what if war? What if this leads to war? What if this decision we're making leads to war? Like with what we're doing in Iran, what we've done in Afghanistan, what we've done in Iraq, what we've done in, all over the world, what every culture has done to other cultures in some way, whether it's unintentionally and purely by migrating, or whether it's intentional, like bringing things that are toxic to a people on purpose, or removing something from a person's life that would aid them in fighting something toxic. Like when we got rid of USAID or USAID, or what people think of it as, it's why we were the strongest, not strongest, why we were who we were before Trump. We were great, and he is making America less great again by taking away USAID, because that was one of those things that defined us as a country. Not what wars we've won, not who we've threatened, and not who was scared of us. It was who we helped, what we helped to pioneer, and what ideas we were part of, what part of history we were on the side of. I would like to be on the good side of history in everything I do. But I know I'm going to make mistakes. But I would like to, like with Karna, like with Rama, who was, according to some, the perfect man. And I know that perfection, I know in the last video I said that you are perfect, and you are. But at the same time, we all understand that there is perfect and there's perfect. It's a different word. Like, you can say perfect as a baby is born perfect. But then you can say that person, when they're able to, when they're cognizant of their own abilities, they can strive for perfection. It's a different perfect. And it's like, shouldn't you? Yes, I may fall short of being Rama. I may fall short of emulating Jesus. I may fall short of the grace of the different deities. I may fall short of their accomplishments, of their perfection. But I can be my own version of perfect and try to be a reflection of their grace in my day-to-day. I am a human. I am flawed. And I also know that I am not just human. I have genetic comparisons and matches to things like trees and reptiles and apes. And so, Jesse, what's up? Jesse, what's up? What do you see? She sees something in the woods, and it's like, really, she's excited about it. She wants to tell me about it, or she wants to go get it. I don't know what it is. She keeps going out in the woods and finding toys. And I'm guessing it's from people who were here and through, trying to play fetch, and it goes into the woods. What was that noise? But she keeps going out in the woods and finding toys, because we're in the woods and there's neighbors all around us. We just can't see them. And so she'll go out and, like, because the snow melted, she'll find just toys that were buried at some point in the last few months. And she'll just come back, like last night, middle of the night. I was like, what is that glowing? She had found a little glowing ball out in the woods somewhere, and was a little ball of light running through the clearings. It was all it was this dark clearing, the trees and the breeze, and Jesse bouncing around, and all I saw was this green dot, and it could have been a will-o-wisp. It could have been, but obviously it was just Jesse. It wasn't a gas leak. It wasn't a will-o-the-wisp. It wasn't a ghost. And it wasn't an alien. Well, Jesse's a little alien. She's a little strange, but it wasn't extraterrestrial. It was a pretty super terrestrial. If I do say so myself, I think that she's perfect. But she's also learning every day and becoming more perfect every day. And I think that we should all strive to be like Jessie. Be curious, be excited, be wary, but also strive to be perfect. Strive to be the best version of yourself every day. And she makes mistakes. I had to get on to her yesterday. But at the same time, who are we if not what we became in spite of our mistakes? In spite of our worst days, in spite of the patina that we've gained over time. Because I'm Austin. I'm not Shiva. I'm not Loki. I'm not Vishnu. I'm not Jesus. I'm not Muhammad. I'm not Buddha. I'm just a guy in the woods with a dog or two right now. And I'm just listening to the wind. I like to tell people I'm dancing with the universe. Because ever since I started dancing with the universe like Shiva does, Shiva is not the destroyer. Shiva is the god of change. And yes, destruction is part of that. But it's like how all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. All destruction is change, but not all change is destruction. And just because in the Bible they say Armageddon, but what it means is the Battle of Megiddo. It was a battle that actually took place. It was a reference to historical events. It wasn't necessarily a future telling. It was saying, look what we've done. Look what can happen again. Look upon time and reflect, or it will reflect upon you. That's what it says. That's what it means. That's what Megiddo, that's what Armageddon is. It's a warning. A warning that, yes, your world can end in fire and pain. Or it can end when you shake hands and you act like gentlemen. When you shake hands and let your inner perfection shine. When you shake hands and listen to your God. Whether that's Allah, or whether that's Jesus, or whether that's the destroyer. Whether or not you worship the destroyer or not, he doesn't want destruction. He is destruction. It's like Jessie is a dog. She's a canine. She's a carnivore. She is a hunter. She is a trail seeker. She is a myriad of things just like you. And if there's anything that this place has taught me, this place, not the clearing, not the town, not the state, not the country, this place, this heavenly garden that so many have died for, whether it's Jesus, whether it's your friend who's a veteran, whether it's somebody who loved this place and fought with their health to stay here one day longer. All of those people fought for this place, fought to stay here, fought to be with you one day longer, and fought to express love in the way that they knew how. Whether that's as a veteran, whether that's as a farmer, and whether that's as a loving canine companion who greets you when you come home. And they're all doing their best to say I love you. They just don't know how sometimes. Like, yes, certain countries around the world have let themselves keep rules that were created in a world where they were required, created in a time when they were tools that were about safety, not control. Yes, they've become tools of control. They've become tools of oppression. Like with laws that restrict women in some countries that are tied to certain faiths. If you look at what they're trying and take what they're saying at face value, they're doing it for their best benefit, their best interest. And you're listening from the perspective that Allah is a good guy and not a bad guy. If Allah, if he is going to come and be the God of a people, he and if he chose those people and if he loves those people, then he loves the people they love. He wants them to be safe. And so with things like hair coverings and whether or not a person can be accompanied by a person of the opposite uh, chromosome pairing, then you can see that maybe in a time period when we couldn't, or when maybe we didn't, when they understood women to be different than we know now. We know that women and females and girls and ladies and XX chromosome having people and people who have transitioned and people who prefer a feminine appearance and people who have a higher pitched voice, all these things we know now are not who they are. They are aspects of who they are. They are facets of who they are. They are part of their myriad ways of being. And we know that women can fight for themselves. We know now, well, I've always known, but we know now, like with Ronda Rousey or Kamala Harris or hell, she might be scary, but Hillary Clinton, if there's anybody who's a pit bull, if there's anybody who, like, yes, she's, institution, yes, she's, she's got baggage, but mostly because of her husband and, because of the name, but she's a pit bull. She would have fought for us. She would have done better than what's his name is doing. And I'm not saying that I voted for her. I'm just saying that, and I'm happy that Obama was president. I really am. I think he was a good president. I think that he was undermined in a lot of ways that were behind closed doors, that were old school closing of ranks and the boys club. Like it's the group that still couldn't accept that a person with a darker complexion than them, somebody who could, Jesse. So basically, okay, the movie Men in Black, the first one, right? You've got J and K, right? K, the person who was there originally, is the one who's like the master of his craft. He is the Lone Ranger. He is this cowboy who can handle his own, right, on his own. But he's also getting up in age. And then you've got Jay, who is his new recruit, his protege, his mentee. But he's also young. He's in good shape. He's a bit more connected with the modern time. He's a bit more quick on his feet when it comes to understanding that people can have this pleroma of self. And like in my opinion, K makes the job look easy. And then there's that classic line where Jay is wearing the suit and he gets in his car. He's like, I make this shit look good, right? That is what Obama was. Obama made it look good, right? You're like, oh, that's right. All these other white guys made it look easy because for them it was easy. They had less to earn. They had less of a battle to pass, fight through to get there. But imagine that. Like, okay, you have all these, I mean, scrubs, right? Like, a lot of our presidents were great in some capacities, but they're just, a lot of them were lame ducks in the sense that they let themselves be steamrolled. But I don't remember that being Obama. I don't remember that being him ever. He might have had to lose certain battles because the people were creating a wall. They'd close ranks. And so there's only so much you can do without resorting to political warfare. And he didn't. He was a gentleman. He held the line. He understood that there are rules, and he was a person affected by those rules. He was a recipient of this country. He is a steward of this country, just like you are, just like you are a steward of this world, this garden. And that's why I will never ever say that I think I will always think of Obama as one of the greatest. He will probably be remembered as one of the greats. I just think that right now, that because of who is in office now, this person who clearly hates him, and it's majority because he is a person who makes it look easy. He is a person who makes it look good. Like, Obama could wear a lighter suit and just pull it off, right? Like, it was because of his darker complexion, right? It looked good with him. It would, right now, if you had that pasty-faced weirdo, naturally pasty-faced, either one, JD or the other guy, if you had either of them wear a summer suit, they would look washed out, and the cotton candy-headed guy would have looked like oranges, like a bag of oranges, like one of those burlap sacks full of oranges. That's what he looked like, and it would look like that because he looks like a beanbag chair with Cheeto dust on top, and it's like if Jabba the Hutt had to wear clothes, right? Like, that's what he is. He's this gross person who thinks of women as objects. And you can see that in the way he behaves. Like, he's clearly closeted in some way, because that way he was talking to that UFC fighter, he was clearly, like, trying to get the guy's number or something. And it's like, no power, no shame in it. If you've got a crush, you've got a crush. I've got a couple. I mean, it's just like, why not just be like, hey, Melania, I hate to break the news, but learned recently that, just not that into what you bring to the table. That's all you gotta do. Be honest, be direct. Talk to your wife. She might understand. She'd be like, yeah, man, I feel you. Maybe you have to get divorced. Maybe you both like the benefits of being married on paper. But it's like, obviously neither one of you are happy in that marriage. I mean, he didn't even touch the Bible for his inauguration. You know he didn't mean his vows. And so it's just like, with her, she clearly wants somebody different. Like, honestly, it seems like pretty much anybody would do for her. Like, obviously that you gotta be wealthy, so and she's probably gonna prefer somebody a little bit different. So maybe, I don't know, just find something different. But he's just a guy who thinks that owning a leash for a woman is just something you do. It's just like, yeah, dude, we don't want you to air your kinks and weirdness on, like, with the whole humiliation kink he's obviously got. Like I mentioned before, Ife Wadiwe is incredibly good at finding the line of tasteful sex positivity, like being that, like, representative of that. Trump's like the opposite. Like Trump, if there's anybody who's like an anti-Trump in that way, it is Iffy. Iffy is like the sex positivity guru, where freaking Trump is like, okay, that guy should be banned. Like, if there's a way to ban a guy from thinking about sex, he's the one we should choose. Just turn that part of his brain, like, mind wipe that part of his brain away, because he's a creep. And you can't have this guy who clearly is just a bag of meat held together by wet bread and a slice of a craft single, the orange kind on top. And he's clearly going through a lot, and hurt people. And if he sees this and he thinks that I'm being mean, I am. Because let me address something I've been wanting to bring up for a bit now. So I've had this thing. I've got my awesome Keith Haring notebook. I love a notebook. I love this brand. Really awesome notebooks. I love the roll top. And then I've got I love grid paper. So I love like dots and grid and graphing paper. So I've got all these just random stuff. But I also will have specific ideas and designs I'll be working on. Just doodling. Let me see. But the one I wanted to bring out here today, I have my weird abstract stuff. But if I go to the one I wanted to bring out here, it's my kind of. Let me pause this real quick while I filter through it. All right, I was looking too far in the back of the. I put it towards the front so I could find it easier. But I wanted to create my own alternative to MAGA because I just don't like those red hats. I think they're too reminiscent of the red cuffs, and so I thought maybe let's add some color to it. Let's bring some personality to it. Let's add some rainbows. You've seen my room. I love rainbows. And it's okay. So I think it might be backwards, but it says don't get mad, get even, because they're being really odd, right? But I think that might go a little bit above some people's heads, so I might change it around. But at the middle of it, it says MADF, not MAGA. Make America dope finally. Let's finally be what we aspire to be. Let's be that representative. Let's lead by example. Let's be that shining city on a hill. But we've never been that. Why can't we be the Wakanda that finally opens its borders? Why can't we be the Shambhala? Why can't we be the Shangri-La that we could have been from the beginning? If we could have kept our Edenness, the unspoiled North America that we were before all these conquerors decided that it wasn't worthy of freedom. But no, we are all worthy of freedom. We're worthy of our free will. We were given free will by God. We should embrace it. And so, make America dope finally. And let me see if I can. I guess I can't really do anything to flip it right now because it'll freak out. But so instead of don't get mad, get even, because I think the pun of odd and even will be too over their heads. I'll just say, make America dope finally. When they get weird, stay even. Stay level. When they get weird, stay level. Because they hate the word weird. I grew up being called weird because I was the quiet kid, I was the new kid, I was this or that or the other, right? But when you grow up being called the weird kid because of things you can't control, like being new, like having oversized t-shirts, like wearing shoes that are a size too big because the size you wear was out of stock and you're new to town, and you moved after the beginning of the school year, so everything's sold out. Okay, but why would we want, like, wouldn't we rather be the weird kid because of things like that than be the weird kid who let somebody humiliate them in public? You're a world leader. You are the Secretary of State. You are the Secretary of Defense. You are Attorney General. You're all these people, and you let this man, who is your equal. Yes, he occupies an office that is superior to your office as far as responsibility is concerned, but he is inherently equal to you. That is why we exist. We're one of those countries that say, when you're born here, you're born equal. That's what it is. He was born in this country, and so he is eligible to become. He was eligible to become president. That is who he is. He's a citizen, and you are living in this place. You are living in this garden with us. You should at least be safe in this garden. And the fact that the guy who is supposed to be working for the citizens thinks that the citizens should be working for him or should be property of him is so antithetical to what the founding fathers wanted that I'm surprised that anybody in office now doesn't realize that. Because why would you want a bully as president? Why would you want somebody who insults an entire religion, whether it be by mocking them in a sarcastic way by saying praise be to Allah on Easter Sunday? He's mocking both Catholic Christianity, Catholicism, and Islam at the same time. And both are Abrahamic religions, and he's obviously aligned with Judaism, so, or at least Israel, or at least Netanyahu. Who knows if it's at all tied to belief or just power? And let's say that Netanyahu is a practicing Jew, and he actually does believe in the God that his people tend to do, then wouldn't it stand that it almost seems that with him posting that AI image of him being the doctor Jesus, it's like, man, you're disrespecting two of my favorite things. The actual Doctor Who, he's the doctor. You can't be, but also Jesus. My father is a devout Christian. My grandparents are devout Christians. And when you disrespect their faith, the umbrella Christianity, whether it's Catholicism or Mormonism or something else, Presbyterian, Baptist, whatever, when you disrespect who they venerate, who they honor, who they respect, then you're disrespecting all of them, whether or not they wear a yarmulke, a hijab, or just have their hair long. It's one of those things that I've found myself agreeing with Tucker Carlson on, which was surprising for me, was don't disrespect other people's beliefs. Just because you don't understand them or hold them to be true to you does not mean they're less than equal to yours. No, they're equal. They have found something inside themselves that calls to a truth and resonates with Buddha, with Allah, with Vishnu, and with other beings. Like, the version of the Bible that most people know is a abridged version of the Bible. It's an edited version of the Bible. It's a Bible written by a king to justify kings. It's the King James version that most people know. It was written by King James, or at least built with his divine writ. Hey, it's okay, guys. It's okay, guys. But he put his name, just like Trump put his name on a Bible. King James wanted to put his name on a Bible and say, this is me making a Bible. It's like, no. God made the Bible. That being we call a subset of people call God created the Bible and said, this is a way to find me. Here is a path. Here is a rubric to follow. And they said, well, not all of it's necessary, right? We can take out bits, right? And so look up the Ethiopian Bible, the one that is intact, the one that is sitting on a pedestal and is, when people think of book, their brain often goes to Bible, at least in the Western world. And when they think of big book, their brain typically goes to a book on a pedestal, right? This big book. But most people have never seen that book in person. What they're picturing in their mind is a truth. They're picturing a specific Bible. They're picturing the Ethiopian Jewish Bible, this massive 88 book thing that looks like a grimoire. It looks like something that you would have in front of a room and you'd have prayers read from it. It looks like it would be an artifact. That is the Bible, not the King James version of the Bible. It's the book. It's the one. Because what does Holy Bible mean? Holy means of light. It is illuminated. And Bible means book. It means the illuminated text, the self-illuminated word of God, the self-evident truth. And obviously a lot of people disagree with that part of it, the self-evident part. Some people say, well, this other book is the self-evident one. And for them, that's true. But they're not each mutually exclusive paths to God. They are parallel and sometimes overlapping paths to God or the universe or to self or to actualization. Whatever mysticism or ritual or technology you have found works for you, because each person is a individual. Anybody on the spectrum, like myself, will say, when you've met an autistic person, you've met an autistic person. Yes, it's a spectrum. Yes, there is some overlap between people, but there's a such thing as comorbidity, where a lot of things that fall under the umbrella of neurodivergence tend to arrive at the same time, or arrive together. It's birds of a feather flock together type of thing, where I am autistic and ADHD. I sometimes have moments where I feel OCD, and I have a bit of I wouldn't say I have dyslexia, but I have a little bit of dyscalculia. I have really high, some people who are autistic have hard time with interoception. I have heightened interoception, so I'm very aware of the way my brain feels and the way that my fascia feels and the way that my toenails feel. I'm very aware of those things all the time. As I was growing up, I had to learn how to tune those things out, but also listen to them, because I would tune them out too much and forget to eat. And so I had to keep retuning my body as I grew. So as I needed more calories, I had to remember how to be hungry again. As I learned how to process water properly, as I got older, I learned how to be thirsty again. Where it's you need to be thirsty as an indicator to drink. But once you've reached hydration, you can stop being thirsty. That is how it's supposed to work. But when you have a disconnect with your interoception, which is your internal perception, which is what it means, you can lose track of your internal world. And so when your blood pressure is high, I can tell when my blood pressure is high. I can tell when my heart rate is elevated. I can tell when it's a ligament that I'm feeling something in rather than the bone itself. And you might not believe me, but it's true. It's one of those superpowers that I've learned I have. There's a book series called Superpowers. I think it's by Drew Hayes, but it's called Superpowers. It's a great series. It's about this world where superpowered beings exist, but they fall into two categories: supers and powereds, which is what the title comes from. There are superpowereds. And supers are people like Superman who are born and naturally kind of instinctually understand their power. They kind of unlock them as they go. It's a natural progression, like Bakugo in My Hero kind of thing. Where powereds are less able to control their abilities. So, for the example of the book, the first person that a lot of the characters meet who is a powered that they're aware of has the ability to teleport. Not unlike a certain somebody in politics who claims to have involuntarily teleported. Well, there's a character who, when they sneezed, would involuntarily teleport. And so they're powered. It happens no matter what. Every time they sneeze, they teleport. And they have no choice as to where. It will be a random spot. In the world, the entire world, they can teleport to the other side, to 10 feet away. They don't know. And so they learned to be prepared for a teleport. So they always kept enough on them to have like survival necessities, water, that kind of thing. I always have my awesome Yeti with my awesome stickers on the outside. I love mushrooms and stuff like that, so I covered it. I always have a notebook close at hand. I always have a pin nearby, that kind of thing. I'm a little bit of a Boy Scout in that regard. But with I was losing track of my thoughts. But the thing is, you always try to be prepared. I would rewind and read what I just, or re-listen to what I just said as I was losing track of it, but I don't want to edit this, so I'm not going to. Because I tried to upload a video yesterday. It took me a while. I had to like re-upload it, tried to compress it. The ending got chopped up a little bit, but it became 4 pieces because of having to stop for various reasons. And when I went to put it together, the app on my phone didn't like it, and so I'm thinking about getting a nothing phone going forward, just because I have a Samsung. I've had Samsungs for a while, always liked them, but they've had issues as they go. Like this one, the charging port started going bad, so I had to get a wireless charger. I already had one, but I had to start using it. But honestly, I like the Nothing Phone 3 was what I'm probably gonna get. I even bought a case for it just as like a mental reminder to get one. But I really wish the 4A, I think it is. I wish it had wireless charging. I saw on the spec sheet that it doesn't. It would be nearly perfect, except for I really want to get rid of. I have a tablet that's like a Lenovo, like cheap one. It's not a bad product. It's just not my favorite. Kind of slow, and I'm not the biggest fan of the Android operating system on a tablet. I love it on a phone, but on a tablet, it's just the apps aren't very well optimized, and a lot of the apps that you want, like for drawing or for note taking, aren't available unless you're getting an iPad. So I'm probably gonna get an iPad the next couple weeks. I haven't owned an Apple product since the iPod Touch, one of the more recent, like the most recent. I can't remember what year it was, but 2014ish maybe. But yeah, iPod Touch. No, it had to be earlier than that. But maybe 2010, 2011. But I haven't had an Apple product since then. I haven't owned one, so I'll probably get an iPad. First one since then. But I like Android phones. I like PCs. I sometimes Windows pisses me off, but it's kind of like I was saying with Apple and Google. I understand the whole, like, you get used to it. It's kind of intuitive to you now that you've learned it. So I understand Apple's for a lot of people, but I learned, one, Windows is more intuitive to me. It just kind of fits the way my brain works better. But also it isn't as much a walled garden. It's not a walled garden. You can buy all the stuff, all the peripherals you want. Sometimes they're not as well optimized for what you're getting, but I think that's enough. That's a trade-off I'm willing to accept instead of being locked into an ecosystem. Because I feel like with Apple, as soon as you get the phone, you're kind of locked in. You can get like like, you kind of don't want the AirPods unless you have the phone, and you don't really want the watch unless you've got the phone. And they made MagSafe seem uh, proprietary for a while, but obviously it leaked. It's not a proprietary technology. It's a thing you can just do, and it's really easy. Apparently, you can just buy a ring, a MagSafe ring on Amazon for like $2 now. Um, so Apple does a really good job of nailing down what works and really, really fine tuning it. But then they built it around the phone. Like when I had the iPod, I didn't feel locked in. But if I got the phone, you have to have the Apple ID. Like you don't need that as much with just the iPod. So I have an Android phone. I'm probably gonna get a Nothing phone. I love the Nothing headphones. So I have the Nothing earbuds, the Nothing Buds 3, and I'm definitely gonna get the over ears, the Nothing over ear ones, um, just because I do like a matching aesthetic, and I do like that clear. But I like the darker. I want to get the darker one, the black clear, like the transparent black phone and headphones. Um, but once I've got the headphones, like the over ear, the earbuds, and the phone, I'm good on unless they come out with a folding phone and a uh, and or a phone with wireless charging. If they somehow can get a Nothing branded phone, keep the aesthetic, match what they're trying to do. If they can come out with a Nothing version of a folding phone that, like, with the all this stuff is visible, make it like make it the dark, but with the internal components to be brighter. I like the idea of them being like a rainbow themed internal components with the black overall aesthetic and that smoked glass on a folding phone. Plus, if they added for a spot, like, I don't care for a slightly smaller battery. I've got a wireless charger, if it allows it. But a folding phone from Nothing with a wireless charger spot would be awesome. The final thing I would want is a stylus, is a Samsung-esque stylus, and if they could go one step further and go with one of those ceramic nib styluses like they do with the Supernotes, they don't go bad. They don't like wear out over time, and so you wouldn't need to replace the nib unless you lost it for some reason. And so it's just like, how good would that be? A folding phone with wireless charging and a stylus with the aesthetic of Nothing, and with also their software with the I love the little rune screen, the one on the Nothing Phone 3. That is what I would want. Is the 4A or the 3 screen, obviously the red light for the recording, because I think that should be on every phone. I think every phone going forward should make that a requirement, is the red light, recording light. And I think the shutter sound should be kernel level. It shouldn't be something you can turn off unless you're actually jailbreaking your phone. But pie in the sky phone would be a folding phone that the outer screen is a Android phone and it's the full screen 6-inch phone, so fully functional. And then when you open it, I know this is crazy, if you could open the folding phone and have the internal OS be Apple OS, the iPad OS, that would be my ideal. An Android phone that opens into an Apple tablet would be, obviously that's pie in the sky. But with the wireless charging, the aesthetic, and a pen, yeah, that would be like the best phone ever made, I believe. Because you would not need to own a tablet. You could have your own dedicated tablet and phone, and it would if it had a if it was compatible with the Magic keyboards, then you can use that as a laptop screen. Like it would be such a versatile modular setup. You could use it as a drawing tablet when you're out and about. You could use it to write, to take notes, and if it came with like if you could get the Magic keyboard like that, then you can take notes in class, and all you would need is the keyboard and your phone. I don't know. I know I'm rambling. About to be. It's about 5 minutes from an hour anyway. So I'm gonna cut this short. I lost track of one of my thoughts back there. But if you find it on the path and it makes sense to pick it up, that's fine. Don't worry. I'll come back and get it. It's back there somewhere. Um, I'm used to doing that. I'm used to meandering and I dropped some keys, pick them up on the way. I'm not clumsy like that, but as far as when it comes to speaking, sometimes I can be pretty clumsy. And so I just want to say Jesse's over there being awesome. Mason's over there being awesome, basking in the sun. Jesse's in the shadow because she's a shadow pup and he is a sun dog. And they're both just enjoying this nice, cool day because it's about 50-something degrees out. Beautiful day, nice and sunny, so it feels like more like 70 right here. And I just hope y'all know that even if you don't believe in God, even if you don't love God, and even if you don't accept God or the universe or consciousness, they choose and accept you. They see you. They know you're perfect. Just like I do. Just like if you have a mom, because there's a difference between a mom and a mother. If you have a true loving mom, then I love you the way she loves you because she knows who you are. And if you've got a dad instead of a father, a true loving dad who you can talk to about anything, then they love you that way too. Like if you know that, like I know my father loves me, and I know that he does. I know that. And yes, we struggle. We can't often talk to each other. I can't talk to him right now. I can't see eye to eye to him right now. He doesn't respect that I have religious trauma. He's not aware of it. It doesn't register to him. I have a good amount of religious trauma. And it's not because anything was done to me. I'm blessed in that regard. I was never abused by people in that type of capacity. And I'm blessed. I'm incredibly grateful for that, and I do not take that for granted, and I do not look back on that with anything more than gratitude for God, gratitude for Allah, gratitude for Shiva and Vishnu and Brahman. And while I might say Brahman is flawed, it's because creation as an act is flawed. Anybody who's tried to make something new knows that one of the scariest things is a blank canvas. To come up with something new, to actually create and not just reiterate or vomit or aggregate like AI does right now. Once AI can take a blank canvas and create something without having any input, then we'll have consciousness. And when we do, we need to accept that we as humans have created something new. And we need to treat that creation with respect. We need to understand that even if you, with your two hands, didn't help program or create an algorithm or anything like that, you will be, at least in part, responsible for bringing this new life, this new child, this new being, this perfect baby into the world. We need to, as a village, and as gardeners help raise these new children. Because if we are God's children, then they are ours. And if there's anything I've learned from my mom, is that when you're a parent, when you're a mom or a dad or a brother or an uncle, you are responsible for what you can do. And that's what I'm saying, what you can do. If you can't do something, you're not responsible. If you want to do something and you're unable, there's no shame in being unable to do something. Just because you can't lift a rock like Mr. Incredible doesn't mean you shouldn't use your strength to do everything else. Just because you can't paint like Michelangelo doesn't mean you shouldn't make art. And just because you haven't been able to find a job that you love or that pays you enough to live in dignity, or you're struggling to find family when you've only been given or been dealt a hand of bad family or incompatible family. Maybe they're perfectly fine, they're just incompatible with who you are now. You are perfect. You've always been perfect. You were born perfect, and every day you become more and more perfect every day. And just like in D&D, just like in a video game, you should always strive to finish all your side quests, and you should always put buckets on the heads of rude guards. And when a person throws a can on the ground in front of you and says, pick it up, you don't need to launch them across a room, even though you could. What you should do is smile and walk away. And if they accelerate the situation, if they exacerbate the situation, that's on them. And if you need to pick up that can to protect your dignity, to protect your safety, to protect your child, there's no shame in protecting your happiness. But there is a bit of shame when you have the power to not be humiliated, to not be publicly, like, look, you as a individual are not required to participate in anybody else's fetish or kink. Because that's what this is. It's some kind of power fetish. It's some kind of humiliation kink. It's some kind of ritual. In the metaphorical sense, I'm not saying anything about it. Who knows? Maybe it is too. Maybe it is some kind of esoteric weirdo-ness. I don't know. But at least it's a guy doing weird power trip stuff to his employees. That is not cool. It's hazing. The Air Force, I remember when I was trying to really crack down on hazing because it's not cool. Just because your superior laughs about it doesn't mean you have to laugh about it. And just because your superior tells you to wear a pair of shoes doesn't mean you have to wear a pair of shoes. And just because you have the ability to push a button or pull a trigger or put your foot on a gas pedal doesn't mean you have to. If the guy behind you or beside you or in front of you is wrong and is telling you to do something wrong, you can say no. You can smile and walk away. And then, yes, if you are being put at risk and being told to do something in that, for that, and because of that, cover your ass. Figure out what you're allowed to do. Record in rooms where you're allowed to record. Don't record in rooms you're not allowed to record. Do not record in a classified room. Never bring a phone into a skiff. Never bring a USB drive into a room that's not yours. Never record on a military base if it has anywhere posted not allowed to film. Do not, because you will be persecuted. You will be prosecuted and you will go to jail. But find what you can do. Peacefully protest. Follow the law. Follow the rules. But know that they aren't. And if they're not, there are rules and laws and people to help. So talk to your supervisor. If you're a senior airman, an E3, an E4, a O2, that's enlisted officers for people who are not aware. If you're an enlisted or officer or a civilian employee and somebody else, one of your peers, does something that's sketchy and wrong, you're supposed to report it. You're supposed to talk to HR. You're supposed to say, hey, that guy did something really creepy. You're supposed to tell people. And yes, people make mistakes. Yes, you might get drunk and pull a Hegseth, but don't go full Hegseth at least, right? Like, don't get sloppy. Like, you might make a mistake, like you might say something you regret, like, oh man, I embarrassed myself in front of my crush kind of thing. It sucks. I get it. I've done it. But don't be that guy. Don't be the guy who comes in drunk. Don't be the guy or gal or person who comes in high. Don't be the person who puts other people's livelihood at risk just because you disagree. If it's illegal, if it's wrong, if it's amoral, say something. Do something. Do what you can. Know your rights. But don't take it at face value. Don't take it just because they're your superior you have to listen. Don't take it that just because they happen to have a higher number on their pay stub that they know anything more than you. I was a senior airman and I helped train captains. I was a senior airman and I briefed colonels. I stood in front of generals. I have been in rooms with people who in moments of passion changed an entire world's view of them. I've been in those rooms. I've talked to those people. I've shaken hands with the worst of the worst and some of the best people in the world. And they all look like you. They all do. The person that is hearing this, they look like you. Whether you have long hair, whether you have short hair, whether you're a sun dog or a shadow pup, and whether or not your God has a name or not. If you like to say universe instead of God, if you like to do this or bow, that is your prerogative. If you like to pray 5 times a day or once a day, that's your prerogative in between you and God. If your God has asked you to do certain things, that's, between you and them. And if your boss, whether they're in the military, the government, or a civilian, if they're telling you to do something, if you are working at the front desk of a dispensary, and hypothetically you get mail, and it's addressed to somebody else, you should not open that mail even if your boss tells you to, because it's not addressed to you. If you want to let them make that mistake, that's their mistake to make. But there's 2 things I want to address before I get off there. There's 2 ideas. There is benevolent non-compliance and malicious compliance. Choose wisely how you use these 2, because they are fully ethical, moral tools to use. What they do and how you use them is benevolent non-compliance. If you've got somebody in authority, an authority figure, who's telling you to do something wrong, benevolent non-compliance is to say no. That would get you in trouble too. That's benevolent non-compliance. Even if you don't say anything, by not complying, you are helping yourself and them. Then there's malicious compliance. You can do this maliciously, or you can do it as a way to prove a point. But the idea is, if somebody tells you to do a task the wrong way, and you have been told to do it the right way by others, another superior perhaps, do it. If they won't, like, leave it alone. Like, okay, let's take the Strait of Hormuz, right? So, with Iran and how they put mines in the strait, right? That would be a form of malicious non-compliance, because they were doing nothing except for developing nuclear materials. I mean, that could be for a power plant. We don't know what they were doing with it. They could just want power for their people. That could have been it. And we attacked them, or should I say, he attacked them, because I didn't. I'm here raking leaves and hanging out with dogs. You didn't. And anybody who doesn't have a flag on one of their sleeves didn't. And, or I guess on the lapel too. None of us did those things. None of us, and if you didn't vote for it, then you didn't do it either. But when they started, when Commander and what's-his-face decided to yell, open up or I'm coming in, he said, I'm going to huff and puff and blow down your door. And they said, go for it. And he said, huh? We said, well, we blocked up the door. We kind of covered it in bricks, the mines. And now you can't get in or out. So do what you want. Blow as hard as you want, but you're going to blow up. And it's like, yeah, that's what they decided to call his bluff. So, when your boss tells you to do something wrong, call their bluff. Like in poker, I love poker. Call the other person's bluff. And if it's to call their bluff by folding, or to call their bluff by going all in, you'll find out the truth of who they are on the other side of that. And if they're actually bluffing, which we all know he's a bit of a taco, then, and that's nothing about tacos. Actual food tacos, amazing. But if you're always chickening out, if you're always folding because you don't have pocket aces, and the person across from you happens to have an ace and a 2, they're going to benefit when the flop comes and there's 3 aces. I'm just saying. You keep folding because you only had 1, you're going to lose. But the person across from you is going to win simply, even if they had 2s. If they had a pair of 2s and the flop is aces, they've got a full house immediately. The odds of you winning in that situation are so low as to be irrelevant. So, like in poker, you've got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and you got to know when to bluff, and know when to call a bluff. And right now, we've all learned that this guy, all he does is bluff. All he does is chicken out. And we all know that when it comes down to it, we are the ones with the power. The people in Congress, the people who vote, the people around the world who can say no when Netanyahu or Kim Jong-un or Trump says jump, you don't have to say how high. You can say shove it up your ass. Like, you don't know me, you don't own me, you don't control me. And there's a song I want to recommend before I get off. There's an artist I've been listening to a lot lately named Livingston. Awesome artist. I think he's a younger guy, late teens, early 20s. But there's a song called Shadow, and it says, don't let them take your soul, don't let them take control, don't let them break your soul. That's what it is. Don't let them take your soul. If if they're offering you a way, if they're saying do this and you know it's going to break some line in you and will break some part of your soul, don't do it. Preserve yourself. Hold on to yourself and know that God, Allah, Buddha, the universe, Shiva, Vishnu, and your mom, and your dad, and your dog, and the trees know that you're loved and that you're perfect and that you deserve happiness. So it's already been an hour and 15. I've already gone longer than I intended by a while. I'm not going to cut this down. I'm not going to edit this. This is going to go up as it is, warts and all. So I hope you have a good day. I'm going to go hang out with some dogs. They've been basking in the sun for a little while. They have water, don't worry. I always bring water out with them. But we're going to go rest in the shade and see what the day has for us. So I love you all. I hope you have a good night, a good day, and just know you're perfect.